2020 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and it's the administrator who called the roll.
All righty. Hank Bagelmann.
Here.
Kate Payne.
Here.
Richard Dane. Mary French.
Here.
Stephanie Garner.
Present.
David Huser. Thought I had David.
I think it looks like he's trying to be here.
I was gonna say, I thought I had him in here.
It's just a gray screen from him.
Alrighty. We'll put him as absent for now, then if he shows up, we'll put him in. Kathy Olson.
Here.
Heidi Solheim.
Here.
Okay, very good. You have an agenda before you that's been updated for June 11, 2020. Do we have a motion that we approve the agenda as printed?
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. The agenda is approved. The minutes of the May 7 meeting, May 7 meeting of 2020 were sent out. We hear a motion to approve those minutes as they were presented.
Move to approve.
Second by Solheim.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. And the minutes of the May 7, 2020 meeting are approved. We have 4 public hearings this evening. It'll be a full agenda, so let's go right to public hearing. It's on your agenda as E1 to review the special provisional use request for 2701 Fifth Avenue Northwest Waverly to operate a church. The administrator has something to put in.
You want to mute for me? Alrighty, so this is special provisional use applied by Riverwood Church. They are proposing to operate their church at 2704 Fifth Avenue Northwest. It is a current building. It's built. They're not planning on doing very much, if any, outside work. They'll have to do some remodeling on the inside if necessary, just to make it into ready for a church building. Right now, they are in a C3 zone, C3, or excuse me, a C2 district. C2 districts allow C1 and C3 district uses in them. C1, it says that churches are allowable by special provisional use. So that's why they had to apply for this provisional use permit. Staff's recommendation is to approve the request.
Hank, you're muted, Hank.
It's going to take some learning. Learning curve is kind of crooked tonight. Anyway, we're going to open the public hearing, and for the people here in City Hall, or for others who may join us electronically, please come to the microphone, state your name, where you live, and tell us what you have to say about this. Is there anyone in the audience tonight who wishes to speak to this issue? Seeing none, hearing none. Do you know of anyone who's online to talk with us?
The applicant, Jim. Tim, do you have anything that you'd like to add to the public hearing?
The only question I had was I thought we switched for the special provisional to the Board of Adjustment.
So the special provisional use requires a recommendation from planning and zoning and then approval or denial by Board of Adjustments.
Okay, it starts
You
here.
are on board to get on the Board of Adjustments meeting.
Okay, so it starts here and then goes to Board of Adjustment.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, you mentioned the name of another gentleman who might have something? Oh. I thought that was, okay. Okay, hearing none, is there any discussion within the members of the commission?
I'd like to know what the parking situation is there.
Very good.
Unfortunately, it's as loud as it'll go. I apologize. Sorry, I was addressing a question in the crowd. The parking right now, it's one parking spot per, I believe it's either 2 or 3 seats in the auditorium. They are actually in excess of that. They almost have twice as much parking as is required by code.
I'm just curious. I drove by this today. Is this the old tech building? Networking building? Is that what it is?
Yeah, network control.
Yeah.
It may have been, it was also the Big Bear at one time.
Isn't this where Butch K had his office for a while back?
I think over the last 15, 20 years, this building has seen a lot of different uses.
It's the eastmost, obviously the eastmost building there. Okay.
Yes,
It seems to be set back just a little bit. It has kind of an arched
yes.
entry to the building.
Yep, kind of a tan color.
Yeah.
East or west of Bootsloff.
Mm-hmm. West of Bootsloff. Yeah. Yeah. So parking is adequate. And so, Isaac, are there any other issues that we might not be aware of that would cause us to think differently about this?
In staff's opinion, no. I mean, they'd be coming off of 5th Avenue Northwest. That road's built for any traffic that they would be seeing. It's in a commercial district, so we're not talking about overloading residential districts with traffic. We're not going to see heavy traffic anytime really other than Sundays and maybe Wednesday nights if they have activities on Wednesday nights. They have an access road that comes in front of them. From staff's opinion, this is a pretty good use for this building. In staff's opinion, we don't see any problems with the church being put at this location.
Okay, and is this a rental or is it a purchase by the church?
Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you purchased this church, correct?
We are renting it with the option to purchase at the end of our lease.
Which is?
We've got a 3-year term with the option for an additional 3-year, and then at 6 years is where we need to either purchase it or they'd have the option to put something else in there.
Okay. So, Hank or Isaac or whatever, if at that time the church said, nope, we're out of here, then what happens? It has to be rezoned again potentially, or?
So we're not rezoning this property. The special provisional use would go with the property owner. But if that special provisional use is not used, if there's like a year where it's not used, then if another church comes in, they would have to apply for a separate one. So once there's a year where the use for this permit is not active, then it kind of resets, for lack of a better term. So it would stick with Riverside Church unless, they were to leave in the future and a church would follow into this building directly on their heels. But so that would be kind of the zoning situation.
Other comments? Hearing none, are you ready to hear the motion?
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the special provisional use request for 2704 5th Avenue Northwest to operate a church and recommend that to the Board of Adjustments.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Isaac, would you do a roll call, please?
Heidi Solheim,
Yes.
Kathy Olson,
Yes.
Stephanie Garner,
Yes.
Mary French,
Yes.
Kate Payne,
Yes.
Hank Bagelmann.
Yes.
I think I didn't unmute again. The motion is carried, and we will forward then the action of this commission to the Board of Adjustment. The second public hearing is a review a special provisional use for 1411 Roundhorn Street, Waverly, Iowa, to install a roof-mounted solar energy system. And Isaac, do you have anything for this?
Okay, so all solar systems inside city limits are required to have a special provisional use before installation. So this specific solar system will be mounted on the roof of 1411 Roundhorn Street. Our code does specify that roof-mounted systems shall not be higher than 10 inches above the roof and may not overhang the roof at any point. The plans submitted to staff show that the energy system that is being installed will be 6 inches above the roof and will not be located close to overhanging the roof. It's actually being installed in such a way so that you can maneuver around the solar system panels and do any necessary work that would be needed for them. This staff recommends approval of this specific special provisional use application.
Hank, I have a question. That's more of a process question. I live on the adjacent street and wonder if it would be appropriate for me to abstain just from proximity in the neighborhood. I don't know what drives that decision.
I think it's entirely up to you unless someone perceives that it would be a problem. It would be your perception that would carry the day.
Okay. My inkling is that it probably is best if I abstain just so that it doesn't upset the apple cart from any point of view.
Okay.
So let me ask a question. This is a roof install, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so any, the reason that this has to go to a public hearing would be for aesthetic reasons?
I guess I don't know the exact reason of why it was put into our code originally. I would imagine probably a big driver is aesthetically and more specifically for maybe ground mounted systems. That would be my assumption. I don't know that for a fact, but obviously I do know that the code requires that it has to go through this process. So that's what we're doing.
I'm going to suggest we go ahead and open the public hearing. We'll hear from anyone who's here to speak to this particular issue. Again, the ground rules are come to the microphone, your name, your address, and we'd like to hear what you have to say. There is no one here who chooses to speak. Do we have anyone that you know of, Isaac, offline?
Isaac or?
Okay, well, we'll close the public hearing. Isaac, I had one question that I don't really understand, and that's why is Moxie Solar the applicant? Aren't the owners the people that are making the petition and they're hiring this company to install something? I don't understand that.
So Moxie Solar is the company that we have dealt with through this entire process. They're the ones that originally submitted the building permit to install. Once we informed them that they needed special provisional use, they're the ones that filled out the application, and then they have been our point of contact. We have not had communications with the actual property owners in this case. So they've been our point of contact. We contacted them. We encouraged them to reach out to the property owners. However, as I've said, they've been our point of contact through this entire process. So.
Does anyone else have something they'd like to ask or input?
Well, the only thing I would wonder about is because there is some question about why this is a public hearing in the first place, we probably, not to interfere with this process at all, but we should probably look at what our code says to understand, is this only for roof installations or is it only for ground installations or whatever? But I wouldn't want that to hold up this process.
Can I be heard, or anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Hear you.
This was passed, oh geez, I don't know, Kathy, you might have been on council when we did this. It might have been right after that second term I was on. But it was fairly early on that we did with the solar green energy because of, I believe the original was looking at people putting in their own windmills, and we didn't want to have that. But I think we had a part about the solar panels on roofs and stuff because there was a concern about possible reflections off of that in people's houses or things like that. So we wanted to have that as a kind of a stage, a step in there that we had to review that and have it kind of heard first.
As you mentioned that, I recall part of that discussion. But again, it might be worthy of revisiting that piece.
Technology has changed.
Yeah, everything's changed. I would move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the special provisional use request for 1411 Roundhorn Street to install a roof-mounted solar energy system. And that is a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Isaac, would you do a roll call?
Kathy Olson.
Yes.
Stephanie Garner.
Yes.
Mary French.
Yes.
Kate Payne.
Abstain.
Oh, abstain. Hank Bagelmann.
You're muted.
Yes.
Heidi Solheim.
Yes.
Okay, we have a unanimous decision to go ahead and move this forward. Let's go to item E3. That's a review of requests for parcel ID 0901126003 from A1 Agricultural District to R1 Single Family Residential District. Isaac?
All right, so staff was approached about this property and rezoning it from A1 to R1 single family to construct single family homes on this property. Right now, with it being A1, putting a single family home would actually not be possible because they'd be too close to other single family homes. In A1, we require that single family homes be 1/4 of a mile away from other properties or other primary structures. So no matter where they put it on this lot, they would be too close to another single family home to build. So that's the reasoning for this, this being rezoned. Staff's recommendation is to approve the request for rezoning.
Again, we're going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here that would have something they'd like to say about this? Again, please come up, state your name, your address, and tell us what you think.
You are unmuted.
Just start up here.
Yep, right here.
Hey, my name is Cody Pierce. I live at 212th Street Northeast, and my property is obviously right next to this, and I was just curious as far as if there's going to be any covenants like there's elsewhere in this neighborhood. That's just all I had is that question. So.
So to kind of address his question, there have been some chats about splitting this property into four single family homes. That has just been speculation at this point. Right now, they're just going through the rezoning process. If they did that, there would be a good chance that they'd have to go through the subdivision process to split that into four additional properties. At that point, we would possibly see a covenant, but that would ultimately be up to the homeowners that would be potentially developing on this property.
Is there anyone else? Please. Isaac, he's going to need your digs.
I'm sorry?
He's going to.
Oh, I apologize.
No, I just didn't want to crowd you. My name is Andrew Schultz, and I live at 213 Carson Circle, which would be right next to where they were going to be building homes. And I guess my question was how many homes, and they said it's speculation, possibly 4. How is that going to affect our sewer with the extra homes going in there? Is there going to be any addition or any additional taxes with that?
Okay, so again, I don't have that information just because at this point, we don't know if this is going to happen, if it's just going to be 1 home, if it's going to be 4. If it is subdivided, sewer, covenants, those sorts of things would be required when it goes through that process. We wouldn't allow any of that to be developed in the city without having that type of information. Unfortunately, I don't have any of that information at the moment, so I can't provide it, obviously. But if it goes through the subdivision process, it'll have to come back through this board. You guys will be notified again, and at that time, we'll have more information to better answer your questions. So.
Do they have to go through a subdivision? They're going to put more houses. You keep saying they may or may not.
Well, and it's just, it was a possibility that they might be interested in it. Obviously, it's been purchased by the JCLJ. At this point, we haven't seen any plans, so I can't say for sure that it is going to be developed.
Let me rephrase the question. If they go to put more than 1 house there, do they have to go through a subdivision meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Isaac, could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. So he was asking if the property is further subdivided, will it have to go through the subdivision process? The answer to that is yes, because in R1, we only allow 1 single family home on a lot. So if they wanted to put more than 1 single family home, then they would be required to create more than 1 lot. So at that point, they would be having to go through a subdivision process. The question is more of, is this going to be subdivided? Is it just going to remain 1 lot for 1 house? Is it going to be subdivided into 2 lots, 3 lots, 4 lots, etc.? And that could potentially determine whether or not it would be a plat of survey that would be required or an actual subdivision. Again, at the moment, staff doesn't have that information because All we have is that they'd like to rezone it to R1 to put a single family home on it.
Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to say something?
Question, yeah.
Yep.
Please come up to the mic so we can hear you.
John Baber, 208 Carson Circle. Right now you have Lance Gritter's house to the south, and if he puts a single home in this area, does it have to match the distance where Lance is at, his house, or how's that figure out? Because that's one long lot, and if he builds a house, it's not going to be in line with, will it have to be in line with Lance Gritter's house?
Isaac, I don't know what the requirements are for setback.
Yep. So for R1 setbacks, it would be 25-foot front yard, 30-foot rear yard, and 10-foot side yards. That's what we would require them to meet to put an R1 single-family home on that property. Obviously, if it is subdivided into more than just the one lot, we would still require those setback requirements, but we wouldn't require them to be set back as far as Mr. Gritter's house. We would simply require that they'd have to meet the setbacks as written in our code.
Okay. Good enough.
Good questions. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, we're going to close the public hearing and move to the commission. The questions from the commission or comments?
So I guess the only question I would have, driving through this area, it's pretty low. What are the implications, if any, of additional construction, and storm sewer and all of that kind of stuff on drainage and, drainage, what the effect is on the, if any, on the water level there?
So my understanding is that there's some natural draining to the east side of the property, more the timber area. And again, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of that information just because they haven't submitted a building permit yet. That would be something that would be required and would be reviewed by city staff, both the zoning and the public works department. And then they would have to meet those requirements. As far as sewer goes, we would likely require them to hook up to city sewer. Again, it's something that would be reviewed once they apply for a building permit.
Is the Gritter's property already hooked up to city sewer?
I don't know the answer to that question. We've got yeses from the audience, so.
Any additional comments or questions? Hearing none, do we hear a motion?
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the rezoning request for parcel ID ending in 003 from A1 Agricultural District to R1 Single Family Residential District to the City Council.
Solheim, a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, Isaac, roll call.
All righty, I think we have David Huser. So David Huser.
Hi. Are you hearing me?
Yep, I can hear you.
I've been on the whole time. I don't know. I had to call in 4 times before I got where I could get through it.
Oh, I apologize about that, but we've got you now. So, Stephanie Garner.
Yes.
Mary French.
Yes.
Kate Payne.
Yes.
Hank Bagelmann.
Yes.
Heidi Solheim.
Yes.
Kathy Olson.
Yes.
Okay, the motion is unanimously passed and will be full.
Unmute, Hank.
The motion has carried. It'll be forwarded to City Council. Move to item E4.
Hank, you're muted.
I don't know how that happened because I unmuted. Try it again. Thank you. Appreciate the heads up. What happens is I hear Isaac about a half a second before you hear it. And so I've got two versions of everything going on. Okay, let's go to item E4. It's a review rezoning request for parcel ID 0535126010 from R4 multiple family residential district to R1 single family residential district. Isaac?
All righty, so Bob and Lindy Jewell are the
Alrighty, so Bob and Lindy Jewell are the applicants for this rezoning request. Currently, it is zoned R4 multiple family residential. R4 does not allow for single family homes. Again, this is a property that they are wishing to develop a single family house on. R4 does not allow that, so they are requesting to downzone the property from R4 to R1. Currently, I'll show on the screen here. Current zoning shows that these three lots are all zoned R4, and then they're surrounded by A1. They're surrounded by A1, but we have two single-family lots to the west, and then we have an agricultural lot to the north. So this is a property that staff sees as a good spot for single-family residential, and staff's recommendation is to approve the rezoning request.
Okay.
Hank,
there is no, well, yes, there is someone still here. So we'll open the public hearing, and sir, if you have something you'd like to say, please come forward. Just your name and address and whatever you have.
My name is Kevin Tice. I live at 1703 Horton Road, which would be one of the residential properties that it doesn't directly border it, but it's very close to it. I just had a question as to whether this will strictly be a single dwelling family home, not a pole building, not a duplex, and not an apartment. Is that correct?
Yeah, R1 would only allow for single family homes.
And yes. No huge pole building?
They would be allowed for whatever accessory structure our code allows for the property size that they're on.
Okay.
Which would be a specific square footage amount.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, those are important questions because they come up, and you know that if someone would want to make a change, they'd have to come through this entire process again. So thank you for coming. I'm going to close the public hearing, and
I do believe we have Bob Jewell on the call.
Oh, really?
Same thing.
Great. Bob Jewell, are you with us?
I am.
Great. We're in the public hearing stage, and if you have something you'd like to say, we'd like to hear it.
I think it's pretty much cut and dried. When I purchased the property, it was R4. At that time, single family was allowed, but since then, I believe planning and zoning has changed some of the regulations to where now it's required to be R1 before I can build.
Hank, you're muted.
Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Not at this time.
Okay. Hearing nothing, we're going to close the public hearing. And the only question I have, Isaac, is that if you look at the drawing on page 37, the road that goes to the west off of the Horton Road is a private driveway.
Mm-hmm.
And the private driveway starts just beyond the entrance to what is an electronic lift station. Okay. My question is, does that have any bearing on any of this? Whose private drive is it?
So I believe you'd be able to answer whose private drive it is, but it does not have any bearing because the Jewels actually have a access easement that goes between the Lloyd property and the Northeast Iowa Community Action Corporation property. So they have an access easement along that drive, and that's how they would access this property.
Oh. The plan is to keep
So the plan is to keep the limited access, that driveway private. Okay.
Yes, correct.
Okay. Any questions from the commission or comments?
So ultimately, I'm just looking at the picture here. Is it, I mean, what is the zoning for the Northeast Iowa Community Action piece?
The zoning for the Northeast Iowa Community Action is also R4. So the Northeast Iowa Community Action, the Lloyd's property, and then the Jewels property are all zoned R4.
Okay. And so this would be carving off a piece of that to be R1.
Correct.
Is there any negative? Is there any negative effect to the Lloyd property if this is rezoned?
The Lloyd property is a single-family residence at the moment. So then, like I said, we have single-family residences to the west of the Jewel property. So it's staff's opinion that this is an area where it is single-family homes that are being developed. R1 zone fits with this area. So I pulled up the future land use map, and you can actually see the yellow is actually low density residential. So the future land use actually identifies much of the area around this property as low density residential. The green is agriculture, which I guess this property kind of sort of is at the moment since it is undeveloped.
This is an area that in the past has experienced, or at least around it, has experienced quite a bit of flooding. Has that all been mitigated with the inflatable dam?
They do still fall inside the flood zone. So that is something that they will have to deal with once they apply for the building permit. But I believe that they should be able to develop this property in such a way that they'll be above the 100-year floodplain, and they should be able to easily get a floodplain permit.
Do we have any other questions or comments? Are you ready to vote? Isaac?
We need a motion, don't we?
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the rezoning request for parcel ID ending in 010 from R4 multiple family residential district to R1 single family residential district to the City Council.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and thanks for that catch. Isaac?
There we go. All right, Stephanie Garner.
Yes.
Mary French.
Yes.
Kate Payne.
Yes.
Hank Bagelmann.
Yes.
Heidi Solheim.
Yes.
Kathy Olson.
Yes.
David Huser.
Yes.
Okay, we have a vote and it's unanimous.
You're muted, Hank.
You're muted, Hank.
Okay, let's get back onto the unmuted. Thank you. We have a unanimous decision, and we're going to then forward that to the city council. Let's move to regular business. We need to review a plat of survey for parcels Y, Z, and AA. And you have in your packet, this is the property that is located just to the north of Nestle and to the south of Waverly Utilities. So, Isaac?
Me too. All right, so I'm going to pull up the current aerial here. So as you can see, this is the property directly to the north of Nestle. It is currently undeveloped. They would like to put storage units on it. It's zoned M1, so it's an allowable use for that district. The plat that they've submitted, I will say it looks a little funky, so I'll run through why the 3 lots. Excuse me. All righty. So the parcel Z, which is the largest portion of this property, that's what will actually be developed when they get to that stage. That's where the storage units would be placed. The parcel Y is going to be the access. The city will actually be vacating part of the street and deeding it to the property owners here. And then there will be an easement that runs along the north side of these properties. And then parcel AA is being separated, and it is actually going to be deeded to Nestle. So there's going to be some, I believe, water retention in the very eastern part of this parcel. Pull up the current aerial. The very eastern part, there's going to be an easement across in that area as well. That was requested by the Waverly Utilities so that they can access across this property to Nestle's property as well. Current zoning, as I said, this property is zoned M1. The whole area is all zoned industrial. So the use that they're proposing, it fits with the industrial zoning. Future land use, again, it shows industrial. So this is going to be an area of town that's going to be industrial. Staff's recommendation is to recommend approval of the plat survey.
What about comments or questions? Well, I'll start it off with one. If you look at the map, and that would be on, it's the one where City of Waverly and all, yeah, that's good. You'll notice that 9th Avenue crosses the Adams Parkway and extends into the property. And Isaac, I think you described that that's going to be deeded over.
Correct.
Okay. But
correct. That is the plan.
Okay. The other part of that, though, is the current railroad siding, where they use it to assemble cars to be taken back, is in pretty much of a north-south plane, but it actually extends up to just about the Waverly Utilities building. Now, are they going to abandon that?
The railroad track ends before 9th Avenue. The siding ends.
The current siding does, but if you look at the chart, let's see. Yeah, the chart that's on page, it's sheet 4.
This is the plat survey.
Yeah. Yeah, any of the Plat surveys show it. They show the Cedar River Railroad paralleling Adams Parkway and well beyond where Ninth Avenue comes in. Now, is that going to be absorbed some other way? Is Cedar Valley Railroad is not noted for being generous with relinquishing property.
My understanding is that we are going to give them simply the Ninth Avenue right of way, and that is all that we're doing. So basically giving them access to the property. As far as the railroad, we don't have any intentions of giving away property that we don't own.
Okay, I just think we need to be aware because we've got plans here that show them having some level of control north of where Ninth Avenue comes through. And I think Kate's right. The railroad siding ends just prior to the intersection with Ninth Avenue. How about anyone else? Well, hearing none, do I hear a motion?
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval of the plat of survey for parcel Y, Z, and AA.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Isaac, roll call, please.
Mary French,
Yes.
Kate Payne,
Yes.
Hank Bagelmann,
Yes.
Heidi Solheim,
Yes.
Kathy Olson,
Yes.
David Huser,
Yes.
Stephanie Garner.
Yes.
Okay, the motion is carried unanimously. The next item is on old business. And it is to keep the question of tree ordinance on the table. We had pretty decent discussion at last month's meeting. Is there anything someone would like to say regarding a tree ordinance?
I think I'd just like to say with the current situation with pandemic and, you know, social distancing and all of that, I think we need to push this off, at least table it for now. I haven't been able to get with Trees Forever or anyone to get any input from them, so.
Okay, anybody else have anything?
Just as a note, at the last Rotary meeting, Paul Cheville spoke on behalf of Trees Forever, and I did have a sense that they are interested in clearly working with the city and whatever is moving forward, but that the city's guidelines are not, what would you say, prescriptive necessarily, but they encourage people to work with leisure services and so on developing plans whenever that's appropriate. So it's a little bit loose, but it seems like the Trees Forever has, you know, kind of a, you know, the city has their heart for Trees Forever, and I like that connection.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, hearing none, let's keep it in the queue and maybe let it go for a couple of months and get past the current thing. On a personal note, a thank you to Dave Huser for saying yes and continuing his participation for the next 5 years, and look forward to hearing your voice, David. Any other
Thanks, Hank. I do have two pieces of business. The first on this note, We do have one opening on this board as of right now. It needs to be a male to keep with gender balance. I have received interest from one individual. However, they have not submitted an application. So if anybody knows of anybody that would be interested in this board, I would implore that you talk to them and get them interested and point them to the website or to the zoning office, and we can get them in contact with an application so he can get that turned in. The second item of business that I have, we did actually have another regular business item that was pulled yesterday. It was for the final plat for JDM. That will be coming back hopefully next month. That is the plan right now. And we just had some problems with the covenants and some other legal documents that they needed to have submitted. We had some discrepancies, so we decided to pull that from the agenda tonight. So that's why I was pulled, and that's why I was pulled so late. So.
Thank you. Going back to the open seat, I think all of us recognize that we have a healthy commission. We have great diversity, especially in experience and in just the background that people bring to this commission. So if you think of someone, whether it's appropriate that they come in for whether it's gender balance or any other thing, having some folks in the queue that we would want to consider, that would be very welcomed. Anything else for the good of the order? Well, hearing none, we'll call the meeting adjourned. Do we need a second? I don't think so.
Just in case, I'll second it.
Okay, we'll even vote. Those in favor say yes.
Yeah, yes.
Yes. It does carry. Thank you very much. We have a date for the next meeting, which is what, July 2nd, or do we want to go to the 9th? Since that's we don't know what the holiday is going to look like. Any preferences out there?
Can't imagine we're going very far.
I'll be back from Maryland.
I would honestly prefer to move it to the following week just because of the holiday week, but
I'm fine with that. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter to me. Both ways work.
Well, traditionally, we've met the week after the 4th of July, and to carry that on sounds like it makes good sense. So
sure, that works.
Fine.
We're okay?
Yep.
Let's go with then July 9. Okay. Hey, thank you all, and for putting up with the mechanical genius that I happen to be and taking care of this mute button. And anyway, thank you all. We appreciate your good humor and your patience. Good night.
Good night.
Ready? Good to see you.